Hello, I'm Theolyn Cortens. Welcome to SoulSchool. Welcome to another Signs and Wonders video. Over the next few videos, I'm going to be talking specifically about archangels on the tree of life. And I want you to follow the thread. So if you know the tree of life model, you may already be aware that on the tree of life are a series of energetic containers, and they're sometimes called gates of light. And each gate of light has an archangel. In fact, some of them have two. I'll talk about that shortly. Now, over the next 8 videos, I'm going to be talking about the gates of light, the archangels on the lower part of the tree of life, because you can see the tree of life model, which is a map of celestial energy, if you like. Well, it's a map of energy everywhere, actually, not just in the heavens, in everything in creation, cosmic energy, we could say. But some of that energy is more palpable for us, or more accessible, or more appropriate, you could say. And the concept is that divine energy flows through creation and it manifests itself in different ways. And the different ways or styles of manifestation are sometimes called the divine faces or the divine hands. And we can think of them as gradations, if you like, of divine energy, creating like pools of energy which can function in different ways to produce different effects. And when those different pools of energy work in harmony with each other, allowing each other time to be one way and then time to be the other way, look at the tree, look at the pillars, the active and the passive pillar, and the pillar of equilibrium in the center. So there's this feeling of the energy being able to move and flow. The word Schaefer, which is used for the flow of divine blessings through the tree of life, Schaefer means everflow. That's why I use this word for the meditation program I offer. So have a look at the tree of life and have a look at the lower section of the tree. And I call it the lower section because the tree's sort of divided into 2 sections, because at a certain point there's a kind of veil. There's a place where the energy is in retreat, or it's sometimes called an empty room, where the possibilities of the energy moving from one side to the other are kind of in suspension, and they can go either way. And on the tree of life, that is called a non-sephira. All the little containers of light are called sephirot. That's the plural for sephira. And the word is roughly translated as container. You can think of it as a reservoir of energy, and you can think of those little pathways a bit like pipes in a plumbing system. That's where the energy is moving, and then it accumulates in one of the sephira, and then it moves on and moves over to another sephira, right? Another gate of light. So let's look at the lower half of the tree. And what I want you to think of is that the sephirot on the lower part of the tree and the archangels that guard those gates of light or containers of divine energy are the group which are most appropriate for you to be working with at a personal level. The 3 Sephirot above the mystery place are more transpersonal, and we may go into those in another series. But for the time being, the most interesting thing for you to work with, if you're trying to sort out your personal life and how to make the most of the archetypal divine energies that are available to everyone, is to look at the lower part of the tree. So right at the foot of the tree is a sephirah called Malchut, and that is generally translated as the kingdom. Of course, the word king is very masculine. We could call it the place. We could call it homeland. I quite like that idea. But the Hebrew word Malchut is associated with the word king in Hebrew, so it's generally called the kingdom. It's the place where we can be sovereign, right? What we want to manifest out of our sovereignty. So at the foot of the tree of life are 2 archangels, and they make a married couple, you could say. And in today's video, I'm going to focus on Sandalphon. If this is a married couple, Sandalphon would be the husband or the bridegroom, you could say. Now, when I wrote my book, Working with Archangels, which is a very popular book about how to work with the archangels on the tree of life, for each chapter, for each archangel, I chose a short poem. And I'm going to read you the poem for Sandalphon. This is the book. And the poem for Sandalphon comes from Longfellow. And the little poem is a very few lines. Have you read in the Talmud of old, in the legends the rabbins have told? Rabbins means rabbis, actually. Of the limitless realms of the air. Have you read it? The marvelous story of Sandalphon, the angel of glory. Sandalphon, the angel of prayer. So that's Longfellow's little poem, and he's referring to the Talmud, which is a rabbinical text, in which you can find lots of stories actually, but certainly you can find the story of Sandalphon. And he's referred to in Longfellow's poem, and his source is the Talmud, as an angel of prayer. And one of Sandalphon's tasks that he's famous for is taking the prayers of the people on earth up to heaven. He weaves them, and it's described as a kind of garland, almost like gathering flowers. And that garland is sent up by Sandalphon into the upper part of the tree of life, into the transpersonal part, if you like. So that's a task for Sandalphon. And there's a lot I could say about Sandalphon, because I had my first real angelic experience of these archangels with Sandalphon. He was the one who prompted me to go on the journeys that I describe in that book, Working with Archangels. And I had already described them in an earlier book called Discovering Angels. And I'll tell you a little bit about that journey. And that'll put it in context why I'm even teaching this to you at the moment. So it's a very long story, my mystical journey, but to keep it as short as possible, in 1974, I had a very powerful, illuminating experience in which I found myself one afternoon in the summer filled with light. This experience had been preceded by all kinds of mystical intuitions. So although it was surprising and stunning and awesome. In some ways, it wasn't totally unexpected. I felt that something was about to happen. Now, when that illumination happened, I did wonder whether it was an angelic visitation. I hadn't really thought about angels in those days. And I certainly didn't see anything. I didn't see a being with wings or halo or anything of that kind. And yet I felt this light moving through me. So that was the beginning of me wondering about religious experience, spiritual experience, and so forth. And much later, it led me to study these kind of experiences for my master's degree. So that was 1974. And not long after that, as I was kind of promised by the guidance that I was getting at the time, I met my present husband, Will, and got married. And having been a single mother with 2 children for 10 years, I then started a new family. So I didn't have much time for meditation or even thinking about angels. But if you have an experience like that, you can't actually brush it under the carpet. And even if you want to get on, as most women will do, with the practical things of living, bringing up small children, making the lunches, getting them to school, all those things, somehow the mystical stuff will come back. You know what they say about Narnia? Once you've been through the wardrobe door and experienced Narnia, you can't forget it. It won't go away. So by the early 1980s, I was meditating again. And in 1982, I had a particular experience during a meditation. And just before the experience, I had been walking outside in the countryside. I was living in Somerset, not far from Glastonbury. And I was pushing my little girl, she wasn't quite 1 year at that time, in a pushchair around the lovely landscape near the house where we were living. And I got the impression, a feeling of a presence in the landscape. And I didn't know what it was, you know. The Somerset landscape is extraordinary. If ever you've been there, you may have seen pictures of Glastonbury Tor, for example. And there was certainly the feeling that this might be a gigantic presence hovering around me in the landscape. And it was so awesome, just the feeling of it, that I didn't want to look over my shoulder in case I saw something. And although I like to bring a sense of humour into this can be quite challenging to have this kind of experience. So a few days later, when I was meditating, I had this very sudden inner vision, what I call my inner television. And quite suddenly, I saw an angel in a way that I'd never seen one before in my life. And it imprinted itself in the back of my mind like a really strong picture. And the picture was of a vast, tall light being walking through the landscape, very similar to the landscape outside my door. And this being had wings, and this being had a halo which stretched and stretched into the skies. But it was also walking, very firmly walking on the grass, wearing a pair of very simple sandals, rather biblical-looking, simple leather sandals. And there were other very distinctive features in this picture I was given. One was that this angel was carrying in one hand a blue crystal and in the other hand an olive branch. And by his feet was a little lamb bouncing along. In the background, on a hill, I could see what looked like a small temple. And I was quite overwhelmed, and it took my breath away, this image. And almost as soon as I'd finished meditating, I attempted to put it down as a painting. Now, you may have heard me say that at one time I did go to art college, but I don't consider myself a great painter. But I did my best, just for my own benefit, really, to keep the image alive for me, although I needn't have worried, really, because it never went. The image never went. And when I talk about it now, I can see it again distinctly, just as I did at the time. Now, I had no idea if that angel in my inner vision had a name. I had no idea about archangel names. But again, shortly afterwards, I was led to something. I was led to a particular book, which was called Angels. And it was a very general book about winged beings across different cultures. And on one particular page, I came across a picture. And this was my first recognition, understanding, or even very first time I'd ever seen such a picture. And this was a picture of an elderly rabbi with the Tree of Life image, the Tree of Life diagram. And the book I had in my hand explained that all the sephirot on this tree are like blooms or blossoms of light, and that each one has a guardian angel. And in particular, it mentioned that at the foot of the Tree of Life is an archangel whose name is Sandalphon. And the name jumped out at me. And the most obvious thing to me was that my angel had had these sandals on. And when I first saw the sandals, I thought how strange, a being of such enormous energy with wings would wear a pair of sandals. So it seemed so homely, so earthbound. So immediately I thought to myself, I've been given something here that I need to work with. And the story that goes on from there is quite a long one. But I wanted to share that with you because it's so important to me that people know about Sandalphon. And that's not an archangel that's mentioned in Christian teaching. And one of the reasons for that may be that Sandalphon is associated with Elijah. The prophet Elijah was supposed to have gone to heaven without dying and was translated, that's the word they use, translated into an angelic being, Sandalphon. And one of the ideas was that Elijah would come again. And he had a reputation for healing. In one of the stories, he even brings back somebody from the dead. So the implication was for the Jewish people around at the time of Jesus, who was doing the same things, that this might be Elijah come again. They ask him very specifically, are you Elijah? And there's a concept here about God, the great God beyond everything, the transcendental God, being able to send very special messengers, not any old angels, but a special angel, sometimes referred to as the great angel. And that great angel is the one who can bring heaven and earth together. And so early Jewish followers of Jesus considered that he might be this great angel, not God incarnated, but definitely a son of God, Benu Elohim, or the sons of God, and in this particular case, a great angel, a great messenger. And Sandalphon is the archangel at the foot of the tree of life in the kingdom, because you know the prayer of Jesus, thy kingdom come. This means bringing heaven to earth, and that is the task of Sandalphon. Equally, Sandalphon takes earth to heaven by taking the prayers up. So he's a very, very powerful character on this tree, even though he's right at the bottom. That is almost the strongest place. And although we're not going to talk about the archangels at the top of the tree right at the moment, I'll just mention that the one of the archangels at the top, Metatron, is regarded as Sandalphon's twin brother. They are very closely related to each other. So working with Sandalphon for you personally is all about grounding your mission in life and bringing it to earth, because every individual human person has come from the heavenly realms with a soul mission, and you need to find out what that is, and then you can work with these archangels who will give you the opportunity to discover the qualities that you need, the qualities that you require for acting out your soul mission in the world. And Sandalphon will help you ground it. So find out more about Sandalphon. Go to my book, Working with Archangels. Work with the angel script, where I've channeled messages from all these archangels. Or, even better, enroll on my course, Accessing Angelic Realms. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about Sandalphon's companion, or bride, Oriel, the light of God. So look out for the second in this series of 8 archangel videos for signs and wonders. Many, many blessings, and keep shining.